Hey, welcome to the Votary podcast. We're a team of filmmakers based in New England who are passionate about storytelling. We talk about the impact that stories have in every part of our lives, from business to culture and everything in between. Thanks for joining us.
We might be rolling.
I think we are.
What are you?
Might be rolling.
What are you referencing?
This is actually episode 21. The last two episodes were at the wrong.
Do we just say 21 every time?
It's kind of funny because the last two episodes.
This is
Mike
episode
hasn't been
21-3.
Shut it.
Mike hasn't been here, so he's coming back in and he's setting.
I'm trying to put some order to this chaos.
Well, I haven't been here either, on purpose.
So
well,
you guys
Jono,
come back.
Why don't you tell me why you were compelled to gather us here together today?
Tell us a story.
So there I was in my living room with my Fire Stick, selecting the next thing that Netflix pumps into my
Requires.
feed. It requires of me to exist in society without feeling left out. So I clicked play, of course. And that was Bo Burnham's Inside. Bo Burnham's Inside.
There it is.
And then you watched it.
So I watched it and I thought that was awesome. Actually, I'll reveal what I thought later. I'm going to wait to reveal my true thoughts. That was a decoy. But I saw it and I slacked the team and said,
Hello, everyone.
This is content that we need to speak about.
And by slacking, you mean messaged.
No, I use Slack. I didn't message.
Thank you to Slack for sponsoring this podcast.
Workspaces are so much more efficient with you, and we thank you for that. So yeah, I thought it would be awesome
You get 15% off of Slack.
to use
business.
Slack as our.
If you go to
We're definitely going to get in
That's
trouble for
Slack
doing this bit at some point.
/Votary Films.
We've done
And
that.
then in the promo code, just put in Votary. V0TARY.
And you'll get a 404 error.
I'm about to do that.
Yeah.
All right,
For
John.
real. So yeah, I thought
continue.
it would be great to talk about, and everyone was like, well, Cody was like, yeah, I saw that. So
Saw
good.
that.
He didn't say what he thought about it, but I saw that. And then everyone else was like, oh, okay, we won't watch it until there's a podcast set up the day before, day after.
If there's no podcast, I will not watch it.
That's right.
I wasn't necessarily going to watch it, but I waited and then watched it last night because I wanted it to be fresh. And I knew if it was something that I had a strong opinion on, I wouldn't be able to help myself but talk about it. So I have not spoken about it.
I'm actually mad that
until
I watched
now.
it so early because now.
Yeah.
Because now you don't even
only
want to talk
watched
about it anymore.
No, not even that. It's like my memory. Like I should have seen it again.
Yeah, you only watched it once.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
I'm a
knew
total noob.
Amateur.
I knew within the first 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, there's going to be a lot of like bits. There's going to be a lot of songs. I'm not going to remember all of them. So I was making some notes in my phone, and then I like gave up making notes like halfway through. But I have a bunch of notes of
You made notes?
my thoughts. They're probably just like, this one was good. Yeah. This is the beginning of my notes. Ready? Intro was cool. The songs are silly but entertaining. But this is my run-on.
You were not
sentence.
looking at your phone while
No,
typing.
I was. No, you know what? I was watching it on my phone, and then I'm on my notes app. So I have so it goes like this. So I'm watching it like this, and then I turn it like this.
Bruh.
It goes
Wait, you
small,
watched it on your phone?
and then it turns like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have internet in my place yet, and it turns like this. So I'm watching it in the corner on the small screen. You know how it does that?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Netflix app, and then I'm writing in
Picture
my
in
notes app
picture.
like
Silly.
the songs are silly but entertaining, but I hope it's not all about the pandemic and staying inside, even though it's called Inside, damn it. Making a literal difference metaphorically, pretty funny. that was the first thing that struck me as comedic. I actually didn't like the first like half of it. I really didn't like it. And,
What?
Yeah.
I thought that the first half was better than the second.
Well, the
Whoa.
first half was actually like funny and a little more lighthearted, and then the second half took a kind of a
Which makes sense why
tragic turn. Actually, that makes sense why you like the first half and why you like the second half.
Because I like tragic.
Mike is sad
sadness.
and I'm happy.
You're a
probably
happy
true.
boy and you're a sad boy.
I'm a baby. No, I just thought that the first half had not as much like creative
Oh my.
value. I don't know. The first half was just so over. Like I was like, this is like jokes that I just feel like
You've
it's like,
heard
oh,
before?
relatable pandemic stuff. Like I was just like, yeah,
Dude, he was in the pandemic when he made it.
I know.
Imagine
but
making
it's
it
like
like now it's played out, but
Yeah.
he was doing it in his.
So the lesson there is
know.
never do anything that's relevant because later it won't be.
Yeah, so for me at the end, I was like, oh, depression, like audience, like struggles with your, childhood and all that stuff. So played out. Like everyone's been through that. Like
No.
But the beginning, I was like, this is funny. This is pandemic.
No, it wasn't that it was pandemic related. It was just that like I just didn't. I don't know. It didn't grab me. Like I wasn't really laughing, and I was sort of like, yeah, okay, FaceTiming your mom, like. this is
Yeah, I didn't love the
relatable, like-
FaceTime your mom, except
And
for
like,
when he
oh.
was like started screaming.
Screaming at it.
And then the white girls on Instagram, I was like, well, it's like kind
Oh, I
of.
agree.
That
So
one was so creative though.
The production value
Well,
in that one was
That
great.
one, I was like, you're giving them way too much credit. Like the stuff you're setting up right now
Is
are,
so
like,
nice.
is super
Yeah.
cool looking. I'm like, most girls' Instagram doesn't look this good.
What about when he started doing review?
Some of them do though.
Like maybe it was the first quarter.
The review
it
on
took
the
him,
review.
It took him to get warmed up the first quarter of the special, but then once he got into like I started laughing at when he's reviewing the review, and then he's reviewing himself, reviewing the review, and then
That was.
and then he starts doing
yeah.
the video game, the Let's Play. Like that's not even halfway through.
That was funny.
It's a long special.
No,
Okay, so it's like in this 2D space. I can't control the camera. Okay. I guess I'll cry.
I guess I'll cry. I guess I'll
cry again. No, the reviewing himself was brilliant. I thought that was hilarious, and then it just keeps kind of just getting smaller and smaller. I actually don't really know how he did that. I think he probably reacted the same thing.
He had to
Multiple
do it
times.
one. I was talking to John about it. He had to do it one long take
Yeah.
and understand his timing.
Yeah, so he
So-
had to go a full take, and then take the end and wrap it backwards into it. So
Yeah.
basically, he had to do the whole thing, knowing that he'd be, every 60 seconds
Yeah.
stopping to review what he just reviewed.
I think I wrote. Yeah, that was like the first really clever thing that I felt like stood out to me. I don't know.
I wonder if he had a first take that he was watching, and then what we see is like the, whatever the last take was. But
So yeah, overall, I felt like the visual aspect was always good. Like I'm not saying it was just what struck me as like oh wow, that was like it made me laugh, or it like got a reaction out of me, or it made me emotional, or I was like really super engaged. I found myself just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's like it looks good. Like even the first thing, like I made you some content, like that was funny. It was cool. Like
Daddy
opening.
made you your
Yeah.
favorite. Now open one.
Like that was great.
Well, here's the deal. You're two
So
things.
maybe it's not the first half.
Well, right,
I
but
didn't like.
not even that. But like two things. That like you're the most critical person like that I've met of like art, but in a good way. And then
In a
everyone else
good
hyped
way.
it up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you went
Yeah.
in to watch it. Like imagine if you had just seen that on your own like a month ago. You had been like, guys.
Maybe so a lot of it too is like painfully relatable
Oh, okay.
Well,
So
that's
you're
what I
not
wanted to talk to
laughing
you about more than anyone.
as much as you
because
are crying.
because I know what it's like to make silly songs for myself. I don't know what it's like to make it at the caliber that he's doing it, where he has an audience, he makes good money doing it. But I've been doing that same kind of crap since I was a kid, just for fun, and sometimes I'll share it.
That's
Right?
fine.
Just make joke songs, like intersperse like silly comedy with music, mostly just making music and like working on albums and being trapped inside last year. I was doing that a ton, and I was making little silly videos, and so I was like really relating
Yeah.
to it. And I couldn't detach myself from that fully, of just being like, not necessarily comparing, but
it was like looking in a mirror.
I don't know. It
well,
was-
Well, that's why I texted you right away. I was like, I thought, oh, Mike would love this, but not thinking that maybe it's so relatable that it's not even, not all of it is comedy to someone who's like
Right.
actually, because like I thought of you when pandemic was happening, and like you said, you were making music, you were doing all this stuff, and then towards the very end, or at least like 2/3 of the way through, or whatever, before 2021, I remember we had that conversation of like, it just feels like it's not like a physical prison, but it's like mentally, like
Yeah.
in this place of like unable to break out, and just like, I can't remember exactly how you described it, but when you shared that with us, it's so relatable to see like it unfold. Almost, it's not live, obviously, Bo Burnham's, but just seeing it like he's putting, here's the start and here's the end and here's like the breaking point. And
Did you guys think that was fully genuine?
I wondered.
The mental the mental health
So
aspect of it?
well, that's what I want to talk to you about specifically.
100%.
I think it's really interesting because, Mike, you and I are both about 30, grew up in suburban Massachusetts, and so did Bo Burnham. And
Yeah.
like that was like a central theme of that special was the fact he's turning 30.
Yeah.
And that he's just from a small town in Massachusetts like we are. And I'm sure you were just as aware of him in the early YouTube days as I was.
Yeah.
Like we watched him like, oh, this kid's from the 2 towns over, and he's like this funny kid doing videos online, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then he's doing Netflix specials. And so having followed his whole career and like seeing the themes of his work being around his mental health from the beginning, and like how he's severely introverted and he's always struggled with his mental health, and like he talks a lot about like his relationship with his parents and his relationship with the church and God and all that. It's just really interesting having all of that context and then watching this latest special.
So you thought it was genuine?
I think that moments of it were, I mean, it's either genuine or he's like such a good actor, because the moment where he's trying to get a sentence out and then he starts panicking and like slapping himself, I'm like, there's no way that's fake. Like he's really
See, that was the
struggling.
moment that made me think about it.
Yeah,
I wasn't
I
thinking.
agree.
I
Yeah.
thought he was completely genuine up until that moment. I'm like, why is he filming from far away?
Yeah,
And why
because
is-
there's intention in
Yeah,
where
like,
you're
and I'm
putting
like,
the camera.
well, maybe
and-
he was just thinking that it would be interesting to see it from this angle, or maybe he knew that he just wasn't going to get through this, and he thought that it would be like
Right.
intentional.
Yeah, and-
but it's like he's editing this, he's shooting
Yeah.
and editing all of this. Everything he's leaving in here is on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like, wait,
Yeah, whether it was fully genuine or not, I don't know. I either way, I was just as impacted by that moment. I was like, I felt like, okay, he's struggling. Like whether or not he's that was real reaction or not, I think the struggle that he was feeling was probably real.
So Linnell opened up her phone and typed in, "Is Bo Burnham okay?"
yeah,
When we watched it, because she wanted to make sure, because he was conveying that emotion so well. But I also agree, it made me think, because it was like a mood shift in that moment of like, okay, is he truly documenting what was happening, or is he doing this because it's a representation of what he did feel?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
what
So,
I-
and either way, I was impacted by that. I was like,
Because
damn.
when he started crying, and he was like crying and it zoomed into the camera, like that's where I was like, is he real
it's
crying or fake crying?
Dramatized, but I feel like it's maybe a recreation of what he's truthfully feeling.
it honestly, because it has been delayed since it came out. Like if it came out in the middle of the pandemic, I don't know if most people would be able to handle it.
Yeah, it was
or really
heavy.
But I had.
Well, I don't know if people
I
are
feel like
handling
I've.
it. Anyway.
Well, it did bring up a lot of the stuff that I felt like I was kind of had moved on from in 2020, where I really, like you were saying, John, like that was kind of the first time I ever felt like my mental health was garbage. Like I never had even thought that before. Like I'd be like, oh, I'm depressed, or oh, I'm like upset or whatever. I didn't really ever think about it as like, oh, I have a mental health issue here. I never ever perceived it as that, even though I might have in my teens. Or I definitely did in my teens. But I had kind of shoved that aside or moved on, or I don't know if I really like processed it or anything like that. I feel like I'm in a much, much better place. But watching it, I was like, oh yeah, like this is how I was feeling, and this is how a lot of people were feeling. But Berlin brought this up when we were talking about this briefly before I had seen it, and Berlin pointed out that he lives with his partner. You never ever see that aspect.
Do you remember the end of, I think it was, Make Happy was the second special? Do you remember the end of that one?
So I watched that after I saw it inside.
No, I don't.
So the very end, he's in the same shed singing a song, and then he
yeah.
opens the door, he walks across the lawn, hugs his girlfriend and their dog in their beautiful home that's right across. So that shed is only 10 feet away from his house where he lives with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So it's not as though he truly was like trapped in that room or something.
Well, so that's what made me start thinking like, wait a second.
Well, you remember the door, right? That was like glowing. Like, so he's using a dramatization of how he felt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the room, like even the fact that he was so big in that space.
I know. Obviously, he had to get. I mean, he's like 6'5" or whatever. But
Yeah,
he
he's
obviously had to
huge.
get Amazon packages. He had to get the lighting. He had to get groceries. He had to, like you don't think about that stuff. So
It's not like he was ever saying like I haven't seen any person. It's not like I'm saying he was lying, or it's not like you can't have. I was living with my girlfriend at the time last year too. Like you it's not like you have. It's like, oh, you live with someone, therefore you don't deserve to be like mentally unwell. But I was just wondering about like, it's not really trying to fully showcase his home life in what it's really like to be trapped inside.
I feel like the funny thing is that he never says that. He never says like this is my real life, and you guys are
right.
It's when he's showing
It's
like
implied.
the bed.
But it
implied.
feels so like
It's all
the way that he portrays it feels like this is his
Well,
real.
And I highly doubt he's confined to that room. That's probably just the production room.
Totally.
The rest, he probably has a whole house.
That's what I was saying. But it's when he like pulls out the bed and gets in the bed, and you're
he
like, oh,
does
he sleeps there.
imply
and then
it.
he has
Yeah.
That's implied.
But it's all visually like, you can totally envision like, oh my God, he's sleeping on the floor and there's lights everywhere.
But I get
he's
it, right?
alone. And
Because he's trying to do that intentionally.
right.
For
It's
the
a metaphor
special.
for his brain. It's a metaphor, like, because that's the thing is the bigger picture with him specifically is that he's always struggled with his mental health. He talks about the song I think that is called Inside is about how growing up he's this lonely kid, introverted lonely kid who chooses to stick himself inside and sing silly songs as an outlet, as a mental outlet. That's been his whole life, and so he that was his coping mechanism as a teenage boy. Was like he's a weird kid, socially awkward, introverted. I'm gonna go in my room, lock the door, and make songs. And then it became popular, and then he just became famous. And he talks about in his other specials his struggles, and like then he started having crippling panic attacks while performing 5 years ago and while he was touring and stuff that he had to stop. So he's legitimately not made anything for 5 years. And then he says, I got better. I started to feel healthier and better and happier. And I said to myself, maybe I can finally step outside again and perform and start making stuff.
Yeah, January 2020.
Right. And then boom. And so the irony of him being in this mental state for his own issues and his own reasons for 5 years, then finally feeling good enough to take a step outside and then being forced inside again. Is really interesting. And so that room became like a metaphor, a visual metaphor for his well-being, like in his brain.
Sure. Yeah. No, and I'm not saying I don't believe that he has any mental health problems or anything like that he was working through. I was just wondering while watching it, but mostly afterwards, like researching, like I wonder how much of this was sort of dramatized and how much of it was like completely candid in real moments. Because a lot of it I related to, and there's that temptation to feel really seen by that art and like feel like, oh, I can like really feel what you're feeling. But if any aspect of it is fake, like I get completely closed off to it. So I was struggling with like, oh, I feel like really connected to this art and like the way he's portraying it. But if he's just sort of acting it out, I want to know. Well, it's like I want to know either way. And maybe it's a mixture, you know.
As it progressed, he started to look more and more like you.
Yeah.
Well, especially me last year with like my hair I was like
and those glasses
completely burly. Yeah.
When there's a few shots during the white woman's Instagram
When he's like sitting by the blinds, and I'm like, that's Mike when he sits over here in the corner of the office, just sits there,
or
and the
the
lights coming in
scene
on
with
his eyes.
the pumpkin candle. I'm like,
Everyone says it's like you know the classic mask disguise phase with the glasses and the mustache and the nose. It's like my face is the disguise face. I feel like anyone who has a beard or a mustache, long hair, and glasses, people are like, you look just like him.
Yeah.
Well, whoever's editing, take a picture of Mike and put it next to a screenshot of Bo Burnham at different moments in the special.
So after I watched it, I watched his last stand-up, which
Make happy.
Yeah, make happy. So I was intrigued by his
And you had never seen anything prior.
I mean, I had seen like YouTube stuff or whatever. I just hadn't watched his stand-up.
Vines.
I had seen 8th grade. I just hadn't seen his stand-up. So I watched that and I was surprised about how like his style of meta, right? His
Yeah.
self-awareness. Like first of all, the country song was like my favorite one. That was
It's so good.
hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So
good.
good.
But
That was your favorite one?
And well, the ending was really good too. But
Yeah.
the country
You know-
song
you
was
see-
so
you
spot
watched
on.
Make Happy?
No.
Okay.
Only clips.
The country song was probably my favorite because of what it called out that I've been so annoyed with for so long that
Right.
he perfectly put into words
Oh, yeah.
with his adjectives thing. But anyway, so
Yeah, it was hilarious.
for those that haven't seen it, it's
Blue
you know,
jeans.
yeah,
Sorry.
it was like
Cold Bear.
dirt road, no shirt, no
Wait,
shoes.
Even though
Is
I've
that in
never
Make
worked
Happy?
a hard day in
No.
my life.
That's in Make Happy. Okay.
so
I'm like, I
anyways,
don't get that one.
Anyway, so he talks about how we as a generation want to be performers. So the
Mhm.
market built social media in a
Mhm.
response to our desire to all be famous and performers.
That's really profound.
And so we all have the capability to build a YouTube channel, build an Instagram following, whatever we want to be on display. Even if we don't have many followers, we're putting it on display for everyone.
yeah.
So he's infatuated with this idea of his performance, and he doesn't even want to be a performer, or like he's struggling with, does he want to be or does he not want to be? And you see really famous people who realize that fame isn't it,
Yeah.
right? Like have mental breakdowns. You have Kanye West or different performers that it's like, I'm at the top, but the top doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that after I saw Inside, and I'm like, okay, well, clearly, like that was like I think 2016 was that, and it was like so spot on to where we are right now. Like the stuff he was talking about, like even from like talking about Israel and Palestine, like everything is like spot on to like what was going on right now, and that was 5 years ago.
Interesting.
So, Jamin, you had a different experience where you enjoyed the first half, and then once it got depressing,
Well,
you didn't.
I thought, I don't know. It's listening to your take on it. I feel like I relate to everything that you're saying, which is funny to me that you like the second half, because I think that I enjoyed the first half more precisely for the reason that you're saying, which is I felt more disconnected when it got more dramatized and more dramatic, and him like trying to sell this idea that like he, I don't know, he's in this room and he's all alone and he's depressed and he's struggling. Like whether that's all true or not, he put a lot of intention into capturing it and displaying it in a certain way.
yeah.
And so I felt like I was thinking more and more about his production, even though I was the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to talk about the production.
But
Well,
the
we'll get there.
beginning
we'll get.
was so like it was just him being creative, and he's like, I have limitless
him
possibilities.
being creative. We'll get there. We'll get to him being creative. Let me tell
I
you.
mean, as cheesy as like the the white woman's Instagram or whatever. Like,
Oh, that song. We'll get to that one.
Stop. We'll get there. We'll get to stop it. Well, so watching it with Jamin, we definitely laughed out loud.
Were you done?
Well, no,
No, I wasn't.
I was gonna try to segue back to him because we.
Okay, go ahead.
We,
it's okay, it never works.
We'll get to segue. Let me tell you.
That's one of those jokes
my
that,
God.
as annoying as it is, we'll probably laugh every time. Because you could just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Please don't. We laughed out loud a lot more in the pre-intermission,
Sure.
and then.
I mean, yeah, given, I guess, because it gets sad.
but finish what your thought, and then I had a thought.
Well, yeah, I guess that's it. And I just felt like when you're thinking about, okay, is he performing or is he just capturing what he's really going through? You just are thinking more critically. You're not, it just, he presents it at the beginning as, I'm giving you content. This is content. And so I think that set the expectation for me that like, this is going to be relatively fun
Right.
and, maybe like provocative and
Which maybe it was his intention
No,
initially.
when I saw the stand-up, I felt the same structure, where he starts out, it's fun, it's whatever, and then he hits you with the more like convicting. Like,
and maybe
thoughts.
that was I had this thought also when I was watching. It's like maybe he hit a wall and he was trying to make keep that tone the whole time, but actually
I think
couldn't do it.
it's a question of what genre you think it is, because if you go in, you're thinking, oh, this is a funny guy he's doing a typical stand special, but he's just doing it at home because he has to. then you're going and you're like, oh, this is gonna be funny, haha, the whole time. But then if you look at it as like, oh, this is just as much a documentary as it is a stand-up special, then the whole lens that you look at it changes.
But that's why it's difficult for me, because it is like, that it's not fully authentic.
That's exactly why Mike was saying, do you guys think it was genuine? Because he brought in documentary filmmaking into it, which is where we hate anything contrived. As a company, we want things to just be as they are and just show them as they are. At least I think all of us personally enjoy that, instead of trying to just stage something. And so the moment he brought in the documentary storytelling side of it, we were like analyzing it, like picking it apart, right?
But I think it totally could be genuine, because think about it. When he's talking about like, I didn't know how long this was going to take. I thought I'd be done by now. Like, I feel like I'm just going to be doing this forever. And then now I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's freaking me out, because that means I'm going to have to stop working on it.
And when he said like, oh, no one's probably going to see this,
right?
So who cares?
Yeah, it's like, F you.
It's true.
So what's interesting is you have to think, like, he chose obviously very intentionally which of those BTS moments he showed us, but he probably has tons of that stuff that he didn't show us.
Yeah, sure.
And so of course he could just forget that the camera was there, like any other documentary. So in that sense, I don't know if it was 100% genuine, but I totally buy into the idea that it could be.
And part of what I'm saying is just looking at it very critically, but generally it made me think very reflectively about what he's going through and how I interpreted what he's presenting. So I think that he did what he wanted to. I think that.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about when he does the first Jeffrey Bezos song, and then a little bit later, he's like,
all he's saying is Jeffrey Bezos.
Yeah, so a little bit later, he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep making stuff, because here we go. And he's like, I'm just gonna keep going forever. And then it cuts to the Jeffrey Bezos song again, except this time he's in a ghillie suit and it's just all whacked out. And it's just like, it feels like he did not write that part in the beginning, right? He's just like
green and pink.
Right. It was just like, I'm gonna keep doing stuff and making, and like just for the purpose of doing it. And so he just goes back to Jeffrey Bezos, but this time in a ghillie suit, like all weird.
Didn't that one end when he's just like, must be nice? What did he say at the end of that?
I don't know, but he's just like,
it was just like Jeffrey Bezos, like he was just.
He's like, you did it.
Yeah. Or something like
oh yeah, you did it. That was the Jeffrey Bezos first and second part was probably where I laughed the hardest.
I don't know why it's so funny.
There was a few moments where I actually
get him, Jeff.
Yeah. There were some laugh out loud moments for sure.
Come on, Jeff, get him. That's what it is.
That's probably. Whoops.
Oh man.
But you know what else stood out to me, and I think we should transition to the actual production part of it. But
what camera was that?
S1H.
So Cody called it out right away. I don't know if you've done research on it before.
Is that a Panasonic?
Panasonic.
I think it was an S1H.
Which
is what I want.
Which is why I literally thought of you.
I literally thought of you.
I was thinking of you.
I thought of you.
Right now, I'm thinking about you.
I'm looking at you and I'm
literally thinking.
I always
can we explain?
Thinking about Mike, we'll get there.
That just felt like a cafeteria for a second. I'm like, how are there only 3 voices?
That must have been a nightmare for you, like surrounded by voices.
Okay. So
thinking about you.
I'll certainly say what was what was coming to my mind, and it was not. I was like, there's no way what I'm hearing is what I'm seeing.
We all said I was literally thinking of you.
Yeah. Literally, metaphorically.
The reason why we were literally thinking about Mike was because he wanted to buy an S1H.
He's been saying it for
during
a year.
The pandemic.
He's like, I need to go to S1H.
And he looks like Bo Burnham. And he's from Central Massachusetts. And he's a white kid who grew up in the suburbs.
Literally.
So I'm not even lying when I say I literally thought about you.
I was literally thinking about
Yeah.
you.
Just attacked Mike. Anyways.
No, I was thinking about you.
Do you think that he got that camera because it's on the Netflix approved list and he was making a Netflix?
It's a pretty cheap camera for how good it is.
Also, what is it, like an 8K sensor?
It's 6K.
I guess.
S1H is 6K.
So he probably knew he needed something super high resolution because he could do his zooms. But
do his zooms.
One thing that really stood out to me was just how talented of a vocalist he is especially in the Funny Feeling song, where it's just guitar, like singer-songwriter style.
How about that camera, though?
Yeah.
No,
Is that
I
a
said we
camera?
would get there. So
Can you not talk about vocals?
I just wanted to say that
He wants to sing.
if
Go
you
ahead.
go listen to his other stuff, his other specials, you can hear in his voice a much more like jokey tone. Like it's almost like it's silly. But then there were a lot more times in this special where he was like actually singing.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, Bo Burnham's actually a really good singer.
Yeah,
He's
it's not like that squeaky.
Yeah, it's not just like a silly tone. It's like, oh shoot, he can actually really sing. Because I've always
The
known
last song, he really in his tone.
yeah. So the
Yo,
auto tune one.
That one was fire.
Well, actually, there's a few where there's difference. Like you can hear him singing with different. I don't know how to call it because I'm not vocalist, but
Well, he has a lot of vocal effects on his voice, but there are some stripped down ones where
You're thinking
he
of
can sing.
Definitely.
Intonation.
Which I always
like
thought of him-
different keys that work better for him and different ranges that
Yeah.
he's using a different range. And
He uses the
just-
octave effect a lot, which I like a lot.
Oh man, the octaves with the
Because at the end
harmonies,
of Make Happy, he does that whole Kanye West style auto tune,
which is what he
Yeah.
was calling back to with the All Eyes on Me.
and then the
Really
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
but
cool.
But
thought
the
that-
cool thing about All Eyes on Me was him saying like, "I'm a performer and I'm gonna own it." It's kind of what it felt like. Him being like, "Just look at me, like I'm gonna be who I was made to be," type of thing. And it felt like him being like, just like he grabs the camera and then you're all of a sudden like it's almost shocking. Like you've been watching him this whole time and all of a sudden he's like interacting with you. Yeah, he's like interacting with you and being like, "Get up!" Like
I did really like the close up on it, and then he sort of breaks the fourth wall and looks. But it looks at you and he's like, "Don't be nervous."
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I was like sitting there, just like I actually got like taken
water's
aback. I was like,
fine.
"No,
It was
he knows I'm here.
Don't look at me."
It wasn't just good lighting. It wasn't just good music. It was the way he performed it
Yeah.
and looked into the camera. It was like you could tell like he was, I don't know, like that was like a moment of expression of him.
Very
and,
impressive.
Yeah.
Beautiful eyes too. He's got beautiful
Oh
eyes.
yeah, no doubt.
yeah. So talking about the approach production wise, that was so impressive. The amount of time and forethought and writing that had to go into it for months, and the fact that he's a good cinematographer. Like he was alone and he came up with those frames and he came. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the whole thing was the fact that it's one room, it's all these different, not the cinematography necessarily, but that's part of it. But just the fact he's in one room, he has all these bits, all these songs, and every single one felt fresh and different and visually unique. And there wasn't it didn't feel like any of them were just like repeating the same ideas. Like maybe in the witty style or just the fact that he's doing like joke songs, but just visually, every single one felt different and fresh. And that's hard to come up with that many different ideas, different lighting techniques, different camera angles, and to make them all feel like they're its own thing. I felt like I just watched a bunch of music videos bookended, and he made that environment feel like it was alive. And
he was in
Yeah.
having no option but static angles. Like
for the most part,
the only time it moved was when he picked it up.
Yeah, I heard it said before that
he was doing
creativity
zooms, yeah.
creativity is really, when you have constraints, right? If you don't have constraints, we talked about this with Nolan. We
Are
talked
you
about this.
holding the mic
We talked about this with Tenet, right? Okay, he has every dollar in the universe to use, every special effects to use in the universe, and it's not as good as if he just had one camera in one room and he had the constraint where he could really use creativity to its maximum ability.
Comparing Tenet and Inside,
Yeah.
I think Inside is more creative.
4-part podcast. This is
Tenet,
part one.
All it did is use reverse effects
It was like
for no reason.
Inside was like, it's like that is the difference.
The Tenet was right click, reverse speed.
Yo, the editor must have been like, so
That's
overpaid.
That's the making of.
I made it.
We should make a reel how to make Tenet in 6 seconds.
Well, what we should
Just
do,
like knock over all the pieces and they come zooming back.
Steal the Tenet look.
no, all we have to do
Tenet effect.
for this podcast, just take it from the end and reverse it at the same time that you're playing it forward.
Sorry, that was the Tenet sound. not the Tenet
So we're
look.
just overlapped with each.
I'm gonna take that
Yep.
moment
Play it forward
and then play it forward and
or
how
play it in
sounds.
reverse.
Yeah. Know what I used to do
Play it
is
forward.
they do what I used to do is I would record my voice with a friend of mine. We had this recorder that you could just do reverse really quickly, and we would just record our voice like saying the pickles are on the rabbit's head, and then you do that reverse and you'd be like, "Yep, watch that," and then I would learn what that was in reverse and say that like, right? And then you would get this weird effect of like the pickles are on the rabbit's head. And then I saw Twin Peaks and I was like, oh my God, they do that. If you watch Twin Peaks and they go into the lodge, I don't know if you've gotten to that part yet.
No.
But that everyone talks like that, where they're in reverse and it's super eerie.
That's
and I was
amazing.
like, I know how they do that effect. I used to do that in my friend's basement.
The Jack Johnson music video is that. Which one is that?
Jack Johnson.
Don't talk to me about Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
You've never seen that music video?
No, I will not watch a Jack Johnson music
You're not
video.
I want to send it to you.
You never seen him live?
Make a banana pancakes to sip it in a bran.
Bo Burnham, everybody.
That's all I can think of when I hear Jack Johnson's name. I'm just like, make a banana pancake. Yeah, I can't stand that guy.
So
I'm gonna make
your
you.
commentary on him is so.
No, he's probably really talented. I just heard that
for
song.
one
and
of
went,
his songs.
I hate
They
it.
did a music video where he wrote it all out and then he sounded it all out in reverse.
On board.
And then it's cool because they did the whole
Yeah,
shot the whole music video and then they played it backwards.
I think Coldplay does a video like that too, and it's
Yeah,
really
I think it's the
dramatic.
Yellow music video.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Anyway, tangent.
Okay, so let's talk about Bo Burnham and his lighting, his framing.
I liked it.
the
When
practical.
I watched it, I liked
You
it.
enjoyed it.
The Bo Burnham.
The Bo Burnham special.
It was good. Panasonic.
Did you guys watch it?
What did you guys think about
Bo Burnham.
that Netflix special? Inside.
Which one? Inside.
Inside, yeah.
Oh, did it kill you though, the bit where he was the brand? That was us. I felt like it felt too close to home.
Too much.
I liked the stuttering part.
He's like,
So
so like, who are you as Bagel Bites? You want people to know that like your Bagel Bites is not racist, theoretically.
Oh yeah, JP Morgan.
The consumer needs to know that JP Morgan is against racism in theory.
In theory, yeah.
And it's like the question is not whether or not you are going to buy Wheat Thins, for instance. The question is, are you
gonna
going to support Wheat Thins in the battle against Lyme disease?
It was too close to home, dude.
He's like, the question that
it's like calls I'm on.
the question
But like, who are you? Like, as a brand?
the question is that I ask all my brands is are you going to be on the right side of history?
Oh God, yeah. I wanted to like kill myself.
So
after
fun.
that. I was like,
he
okay.
was encapsulating and then that
literally
bit.
what we do.
We should
Not
hire
what we do.
him.
We don't do that.
We should give him a job offer.
We're actually the anti that. But what we've talked about on this podcast is that thing that drives us nuts that brands are doing. Which is,
Can we talk about us for a second?
But I thought that bit encapsulated that very well. It was killing me. Is. And the fact that he's just wide so you can see the lighting and the backdrop and when he sits down he's like pointing at the camera like look here, like it was just too real.
Yeah, it's too real.
What were you gonna say, Jamin?
Marketing.
I agree.
No, you were gonna say, or are you just being a biscuit?
Oh, I was being a biscuit.
Okay.
Oh, biscuit.
I just...
It's James.
It's that part in the episode where we have to talk about, at Votary.
No, don't do that.
No, we don't have to do that.
No.
Oh, I thought that was...
No, they can go to the website, votaryfilms.com, if they want to learn anything about us in our story acceleration workshop.
If you do like
in our stories.
I would not,
We're not
talk
talk-
about that on the podcast.
No.
We are not talking about how we make meaningful, authentic films and how we
And we're
work
kind of
with
the
our partners.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You can't do that word.
That's like the third time you've tried to say that word.
Dang,
today.
bro, you
I
love
did
that
try
word.
to say it earlier
But you know what?
today.
I tried to say that word the other day and did the exact same thing.
Lost a job?
I was like antithesis.
Antithesis?
Antithesis.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we
The lighting was cool.
we just tell people make who you are. Don't try.
Don't try to... Don't try.
Don't try and be something you're not. If you're good, we'll talk about it. If you're bad, we'll just
We're going
go
to tell
find a
people...
different company.
If you're
you're
bad,
bad.
we're going to tell people that you are trying to do better.
Do we dare?
If you are,
If you're not...
then bye.
Yeah.
Do I dare to actually try to get us to talk seriously about the lighting, or is it just
Sure,
gonna
let's
keep
do it.
devolving into?
I love
you
the
can try.
practical part of the
I can
lighting.
try.
Like the way he put stuff on the walls. That was really cool. Like,
I was
even,
also
like,
really impressed with the projector.
the moods from the projector, like the fire, the campfire, or the woods, stuff like that. Oh
Like
my
when he added
gosh.
the woods sound effects, and I was like, he's in the woods right now. That's just.
I was like, well, I thought this was inside,
Yeah.
not outside.
How do you do that?
Does it call inside?
That's weird.
So we're not gonna talk about it then.
No, I'm serious.
Talking about
This
it.
is so good.
No, the projector was cool. I liked all the different colors, and I liked the like crazy close-ups that were
Yeah.
just like
The eggplant
that was
emoji.
very cinematic.
I like when you put emojis over his body, stuff like that. Great.
The sexting song.
Like, how can we do that?
The sexting song was funny.
Me and you.
That made me laugh.
No, like using projectors is an amazing B-roll, right? We should do that more for our clients.
Okay, I'm done.
Oh, really?
This thing's falling
We need to.
right off a cliff.
After this podcast, people they go to our portfolio, and every brand story that we have is just like projector B-roll,
Yes.
like archive footage projected over someone.
I like it.
I
really
mean,
do
it
like
could
it.
actually work depending on the
I,
project.
I think in the right case, it would look awesome.
Remember the moment where, so he's singing about turning 30, and then he does that 2020, I turn 30, I'll do
love that
another 10, 20, 30, I'll be 40 and kill myself then.
Sing it.
And then it cuts to him, and he's like, guys, I don't actually want to kill myself. Like,
So at that point, that was when I was like, okay, dude, we get it.
and then,
Because he keeps making that joke.
Well, it's just like, yeah. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
and then in the
It cuts
middle
to the
of
projection.
it cuts to him projecting onto his own chest as he's
Yeah.
looking all like depressed and disheveled. It's like he's
And
older, and he's like watching his own "Don't Kill Yourself."
That was pretty interesting.
I like how periodically he was watching what he was doing, and you
Right.
know, like he was like piecing it together.
Yeah, he was like a voyeur of himself. Like that was very creative. I felt like the things that were overplayed was just like the like I'm sad and it's depressing.
But then-
and I'm suicidal and all this stuff. And I'm like, if that's real, that was just my struggle. Is like if that's real, then like joke about it, sure. But like, is it not real? And is it just? If I started to feel like it was overplayed, and I'm like, my heart is like wanting to go out to him at the same time, just like. If this is all staged, I want to enjoy it for that because it's like the tone was like goofy, funny, like
Saving
commentary on actual current events. You're like,
comedy.
oh, okay, yeah.
That's
it's-
exactly what he did in his stand-up.
And then yeah,
even
exactly,
talked about-
which is very much him. And then by the end, I'm like, it was either like completely geniusly written or this is very, very like open and vulnerable for him to do, and. It's like, yeah. So I was just having that struggle.
I feel
while
like either
watching it.
way, it's pretty vulnerable.
It is, and I overall, I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought it was incredibly well made, and it's like super unique. I was just, I think because it was relatable, because it's like I feel while watching it, I'm like, yeah, I kind of know what that feels like. It's almost like you don't, like you said, you don't know if it's you don't know if you're watching a documentary or a scripted drama. And when you're watching a film, you can kind of immerse yourself in that world, and you're like, these are actors really embodying something, and it's okay to feel like, okay, they're really pouring their heart out, but it's still a scripted story, whatever. Or there's a feeling of watching a documentary where you're like, oh my God, it's connecting with a real person.
Yeah.
And I had that. My brain was like, well, but
Yeah.
which is it? You
I
know?
think,
Okay, but the
and
camera
he's interesting
and the lighting was good.
because, you know, he doesn't stick to his form. Like he doesn't stick to a form, and that's been his thing from the beginning.
Maybe.
And like he kind of like, you know, it's like Andy Kaufman was kind of like.
Maybe.
He was less about this is a funny comedy, and more than he was like, I'm trying to give people a unique experience.
I think Andy Kaufman, he would just get lost in his own world, in his own character or something, and then it would just go wherever it went, which I love that. And I love that type of like anti-humor and all of that stuff. I really think that he started trying to make a real legit special in his style, and it really just
Devolved. I
It
think
really
that
just
too.
devolved into something else. And then he went, okay, I have all this stuff. It's a struggle. Maybe I just make it for what it is right now. Because if something takes a year to do, like you're going through a lot of ups and downs
Yeah.
during it. Like I get that. Like creating something, you almost become completely detached from what you were doing a year ago or who you were a year ago, and then you have to just deal with it and go, well, I wrote it, it's done, and what am I not gonna include it? It's like I really feel like that's what he did because he's the one who edited it. It's like it's not like he handed all the footage over and someone was like manipulating it. It wasn't like reality show type of documentary like that. It's like no, he's showing us this,
which actually would be kind of interesting to see another documentary editor take all of the footage that he shot, every take, and then construct their own version.
Yeah, I wonder if they would just make it all
The
funny.
same.
Because at the end you're like, usually even a dark comedy special will end with a joke. This ends in a very kind of thought-provoking, dramatic sort of, like very film-like.
Yeah.
At that point, I was like, man, it's not really a comedy special.
Maybe we're just haters, and he's on the edge of creative technology.
Well, I do think
He's just a genius.
I think he is.
when I think of
I'll give him the genius award.
when I think of the creative process, I feel like it was a big commentary on like what it's like to go through and make something. Like it's like you're birthing something, right? So he went through this ups and downs and these hard moments and these moments of doubting, right? To create something that everyone right now is like, at least from what I see on YouTube comments, hailing as, oh, it's a masterpiece, it's masterful, it's amazing as far as comedy specials go. But when I think of myself editing or shooting something and then taking it and editing it, there's this moment of like I feel overwhelmed by it. So at first I feel excited, and like maybe it's like the beginning where it's like jokes and fun, and it's like we're making and creating, and then it's like you're lonely because it's just you and you have to edit it and you have to create it, and it's like you struggle.
So he kind of
it's almost like he
captured that.
Captured for me, not so much like the mental health part, like I was not relating as hard, not having been through the same feelings of pandemic that he went through, but I feel in life, but I also feel like what he was doing creatively was striking a chord with me, because I'm like, it is really tough if you're going to make something great to follow through, to not have it be perfect, to not worry about it, like what is everyone going to think of this, and then also how do you make it so it's not just, oh, it's just funny or it's just dark, how do you blend these together? And so also at the end, with it coming around to being something more introspective, you relate to that, because even when you put out a piece of art, there's this moment of, for me, I've always felt this little moment of letdown. It's like you put it out there, it's like, spend a year, spend 9 months, whatever it is, even if it's a work thing, spend like a month editing it, and then you put it out there, and then it's like crickets. It's like, well, what happened? Was it really well received? Does it just live on our website now?
Do you like me?
You put it out there, and then there's this moment of like, okay, now what? And then you have to make something else, and it's like you keep going and you keep growing and improving.
And what's interesting too about this special is that it was him alone from the beginning, because I remember seeing an interview with
Well, theoretically, he was living with his girlfriend, so
yeah. But at least the writing and the shooting and all production. I remember Judd Apatow said in an interview like how he gets like depressed every time he has to edit, because it means production's over. So you spend months with your friends. You spend months with your friends like making the movie, and you're just like totally social the whole time, and it's collaborative. And then all of a sudden you just look around and it's just you and a computer and you're alone, and and he's just so sad. And I was like, for this, Bo Burnham was just, the whole thing was alone, so you could understand why, like it just got
he loses momentum.
It got really like difficult in the middle,
No, I bet he couldn't even see the forest from the trees.
He got lost in the weeds.
I bet he was deep in the weeds.
Yeah,
or
the fact
ball
that
from the projection.
The fact that he finished it is like it's a feat.
Yeah,
that's enough.
And I did think the one, not that other moments weren't genuine, but I totally bought when he's got the stupid light on his head and he's just like, no one's gonna see this, and it's just like that
reminded me of
I was
you
like,
so much.
I have done that
I literally
so many
thought of-
times, but really nobody has
And no one has seen it.
or heard
Yeah.
it or whatever it is, and
Dude.
I liked that.
That's deep. So would you go back and take all the things you've made and
make a special?
Things you've filmed and things that you never thought anyone would do, to be putting a vulnerable piece of art out there ever, with all the stuff that you have
Well,
in the
I'm
It'd
archives?
be like Mike's video library.
I'm working on an album that I've been working on for 4 years with a friend, 2 friends, and that is kind of been my thing where I'm like, okay, out of all the things nobody's heard, they're gonna hear this for better or for worse.
Oh my!
But
Can you
I have
play it
I have
right
a lot
now?
of personal things that are just like I'm just having fun, and just like making things, and I'm like, oh, maybe this will become something, and I probably should just make a solo album at some point, just because it's like there's too much hard drives of just stuff, because I love that process, the creative process.
Do you make
hate
funny songs?
organizing it, do like.
Yeah.
Like making it all structured, make sense, then producing it, then now I gotta go to the studio, I'm gonna pay for that, and then I have to actually show people it. Like I don't want to do that. I just want to make something, listen to it like a month later, and be like, oh, it was funny, that was fun. And in the moment, it's just like I'm in my element, So watching it, I'm like, the fact that I'm watching this, like I don't know, maybe Bo Burnham clearly doesn't have the same. He obviously has a good work ethic. He's like successful. He's actually put things out there. He's not just like, lazy. And,
I kept waiting for the edit montage of him filming himself editing.
Oh.
you got to see little clips of that.
Yeah, a little
I
bit.
liked that.
Well, like one shot.
Where he's playing the thing that you just watched.
Yeah.
And he's just like in the room, you just hear it
Yeah.
coming from his computer. Like I like those little.
Yeah,
I
it
like that
takes you out
too,
of
but
it.
I was waiting for the Rocky I'm editing. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm glad.
And then
he
a
didn't
couple
do that.
times
I don't know.
after he so there's one scene where he's sitting down just singing, like practicing,
Yeah.
and then he's like, I took a big effing breath, and then he's like, go, and then he like, records it again and starts singing, and then the one where all my stupid friends are having stupid children. When he ends that song,
That made me laugh.
he ends that song, and he's just like, he says something like, wrap it up or do one more. Like you hear him say that, and so it's just like really.
That's the stuff that made it really endearing.
I thought that was
like,
really
I'd
interesting.
like to just hear him
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
Because then it just gives you a moment of like, oh, he is alone processing all this, like just dealing with it, making
Well,
it.
and it's funny to think that like he did all these different takes, and what we're seeing is like not the last one he did. Normally, we would be seeing the last.
wasn't it like at the end, the last song he started with it because
The
he had it
first take.
the end in mind. So he starts with him
Right,
like
so
clean
he's like-
shaven,
he's-
and
yeah.
then he gets on later, and he's
It's
kind
like
of
on
weird.
it, and it's a year later.
So he knew that was going to be the ending.
Yeah,
But he even said it.
He sits down. He's like, idea for an ending song.
Yes.
Take one, and then he starts singing it, and then it overlaps to.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
It was kind of like
The antithesis.
It
really.
honestly felt.
We'll get there.
At that point, it felt like an '80s stadium live show where they did like the overlay thing, and I was like, "This is very like the ending of a Disney movie or something." It was very.
It was kind of epic.
It was cool though, yeah.
Like a Disney original, not like a animated Disney movie.
No.
Although, Welcome to the Internet.
Oh, like Cheetah Girls.
It did feel like a Disney movie, like a Disney villain's like.
Oh man, that
his
was
his music
amazing.
writing style is very like nursery rhymey, like old Disney movie type of feeling. I don't know. It not in like an orchestral type of way, but it's very like I think that it works because it's so goofy. And then when he has more like dark subject matter, it's it adds to the comedy because he's just has this sort of like goofiness about the song.
I'll say one more thing about his content, like the actual music and songs, stuff like that, and the lyrics. The way he just does little lyrics that are very, it's like a comedian, right? If they write a joke, it's supposed to be potent. It's supposed to be making you laugh with like a very short amount of time. Like his lyrics were stuck out to me as toy lyrics. Yeah.
It's toy.
Like even with like being like it's just conveying a feeling, like the way he's saying it, he'll get uber specific with what he's saying. Like a very specific example, like when he said like, what was it, a gift shop at the gun range, a mass shooting at the mall. Like he says these things that are poetic but specific, and so all the way throughout, I was really struck by the way he did his lyrics and
That
just
song
like
in
the weight of
particular,
them.
that song in particular is so simple, phrase by phrase, and just like basically painting the picture of modern society. They're just like the irony and the craziness of what we're looking at in the world right now. I thought that was really interesting. Like that song was
When he was like, it's just a funny
really
feeling.
well written.
It's like that funny feeling. It's like it's hard for everyone's every day trying to put it into words, like why. But he's just saying like it's a funny feeling.
Yeah, which I think that's like I think that's like the purpose of artists is to give a voice to people who don't have a way of communicating this stuff.
Totally.
It's art. It's an artist's job to communicate that.
In whatever way is their highest talent.
Yeah.
I love to when he's just laying on the ground under a blanket, and he's got the mic on the pillow, and he just looks like so dead.
And the cut to that,
And he's just like he's just talking about how like basically like maybe we shouldn't have just done social media. Like maybe it wasn't a good idea. Like
I felt like
Maybe that.
I felt like he was saying more smartphones in general.
Yeah.
That's what I got from that.
Yeah.
Like technology.
Yeah.
Companies.
That
Like, should we
Maybe
have not-
that's not
he's
good.
like that benefits no one but a few bug-eyed salamanders in Silicon Valley. That's great. It's such a good description of like Zuckerberg and people like that, like bug-eyed salamander. So good.
Wow. Just
And with that,
I called out Zuckerberg.
uh-oh.
don't call him.
Don't call him right
It's weird
now.
that no one will ever hear this podcast.
So F you.
It's weird that we're self-aware and
So you can go ahead and swear.
And we're just gonna keep on going and making this forever.
And now that we're reaching the end, it's kind of like I don't want to reach the end.
Yeah, because now what do I do with my
The rest of our day.
Day.
We're gonna have to,
Yeah, it's like
Actually-
it's just a Tuesday,
we're gonna have to actually work.
Just a Tuesday?
3:45.
Maybe we get a quick cry in.
I guess I'll cry again.
Guess
Guess
I'll
I'll
cry
cry again.
That was great.
Oh yeah, the video games. Yeah.
So these podcasts they can run long because it's really an escapism from our day-to-day
All right. Yeah.
lives and really who we are as people and
It's kind of a defense
society.
It's a
It's
defense mechanism.
Yeah.
defense mechanism.
I kind of
really.
levy criticism against myself because I'm worried that people are going to criticize
Other people
me.
are going to
Yeah.
criticize me.
So I do it
it's like
first.
I'm worried that people are going to say you don't have any Spotify listeners, but not before I say it.
We know no one's listening.
Yeah. If we're self-aware about being self-aware,
Right. It's
about
really just like
Oh,
it's stupid. The song really
Okay.
isn't really about anything.
Where's your
and-
baby?
oh, here's where I was talking about us as a company escaping from really the reality of our day-to-day jobs, so that we can actually do something, that is fun and collaborative.
And
here
that
at
was
the
my review of the
table.
podcast. Thanks
Yeah.
for watching. Should we wrap it?
Well, did it stir up anything that didn't really have to do with the special? Did it make
Yeah.
you guys think about anything else
Yeah.
Yeah,
or feel anything else?
I
That
just
funny
really
feeling.
appreciated the perspective on society and just like how he kept saying it. He's like the world is effed up. Like I don't know. It was just
Well, I like the fact that we could do anything and make anything, and we're all have the ability to do whatever we want to do and say whatever is meaningful to us. And maybe we don't have the same audience, but I don't know. That was like mind blowing. That one camera.
yeah, the
do all that.
simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of inspiring too. It's like damn, some cheap LED lights and one camera, and he's crushing it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He-
It's not
he
about
killed
the
it.
gear.
Yeah. Well, it is about New York.
To a degree, it's about gear past that threshold. If you don't have story, sorry.
I literally thought of Mike the whole time.
What about you?
No, that's sorry. What do you mean about if I had?
if it brought up anything else, just
Oh yeah,
any
just
other
like
thoughts or
a
feelings?
general sadness for,
The state of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. The second half, I think it is depressing.
And
Which is where me, as someone who would make something personally, like I always look for how can I interject that little bit of like you want to set up the fact that things are broken, and then also interject like hope, the light at the end of the tunnel, the hope. And I feel like, I can appreciate what he did, but I can also reflect on like how would I make something in the future and what would I do differently.
it made me think about how is someone who is struggling with depression or even having suicidal thoughts, how would this affect them? Because it's supposed to be a comedy. He opens with, saving the world with comedy. Like he's trying to help, but I just wonder if it is.
Well, he was intentional about that at the end. He put a thing that said, if you're struggling, here's some resources.
I think
At the
it's-
end, I didn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is personally. I think that is healing. I think that the things that bother you the most, it's healing to laugh about.
Totally.
not in a way where it's people making fun of you. Lighten up.
I agree, but
Like, oh, some big insecurity people are like just like poking that soft spot or that raw spot. Like, I don't think that necessarily helps. But if you can find within yourself the ability to laugh, and not as like a way to cover it up, but just I do think that's healing.
If you can laugh at something, it takes away a lot of its power, like its control over you.
Yeah, and so I think that it would probably be helpful.
I'm just gonna laugh at Cody.
takes away his power.
Take away that power.
Like in Stephen King's It. That's the whole idea.
I never saw
Yeah,
it.
it feeds off of fear. So if you're afraid of it, it becomes more powerful. But if you can,
That's very true.
Yeah. I think that I don't know, for me it gave me like just like the perspective of like thinking about yourself and how you're perceived, and then who you are in some sort of public eye or to your friends or anything, and the fact that he's sort of watching himself. I just kept like going down that rabbit hole in my head of like, I wonder if he was struggling with the fact that who he is off stage is not who he really is, and now he's trying to make something that is
Who he really is.
well, no, I think he was sort of trying to make something that is just what he does best, but then who he really is seeping into that, because it's just hard for it to not when he doesn't have as much time to work on something. It seems like he didn't have a really balanced life. It seemed like it was a perfect representation of what lockdown really did for a lot of people. And that's why I don't think it was a good thing necessarily. It really it put this into the world, which is beautiful, but also like if this is a highly creative person who has a work ethic, who's still struggling, who has money, who has a girlfriend, like his life's not that bad, but doesn't matter when you're dealing with just complete isolation. And I'm like, wow, this is
so true.
So think about if you watch this from the perspective of someone who lost their job and couldn't pay their rent and couldn't even afford to eat or whatever it was, and stimulus check took 6 months to even get passed, or whatever it was that like they were struggling with. I can imagine, like you said, the way you related to it maybe wasn't funny, right? So I feel like some people might look at that and be like, wow, he's so privileged that he could even buy all this lighting and equipment and make a Netflix special.
Sure. And I think he was trying to be like self-aware of that, which is also like added to it. But I don't know.
He owned who he was.
Not to get hung up on the pandemic aspect of it.
Yeah,
but,
it's like, and he was like, how can the world's so effed up, and like, comedy is how I can help while still being the center of attention and getting paid.
so he opened up with that to be like, I
but
understand this comes
is the
across
tool.
this way.
Well, that's the thing though. It's like some people are like shoemakers, and some people are like writers, and some people build walls. It's like whatever. Like you got your
Some
skill.
people just need to, like, it's an honest need. Maybe that's a silly thing to say.
They need.
No, I mean it is. Comedy is, I think,
but I mean,
bigger need in just art in general.
The expression and the external processing.
Yeah, and I definitely relate to the like. Well, the world. There's really not a place for the thing that I want to make. Like I relate to that, and I felt like I was getting that vibe from it.
Yeah,
a lot. So, just like the fact that he's sort of choosing what to put out there, and he's choosing what to record and what to write about and all of that stuff. But I do feel like the sort of like question of his true nature or identity was like in him just like observing himself was really like tripping me out a little bit, because I've been thinking about that a lot. And I mean, I can't imagine like it's like if you struggle with self-hatred too, not that he necessarily does, but it seemed like that was sort of coming up. It's like I can't imagine trying to like do all these goofy things and then watch yourself and edit together. Like that'd be nauseating.
Yeah. Remember this song where he's talking about feeling like a bag of shit?
Yeah.
And like that's what I love so much about it, because I feel like you're right. Like he was like, I'm gonna make a special. I'm gonna write a bunch of songs, and
there were definitely things that just came up.
Yeah. And he just like that's what I loved about it. It was just as much a documentary about him making it along the way as it was a special that he set out to make as one thing, but then you watched what it became.
I would pay money for the outtakes and the things that he did not include. Like
Yeah.
I would like that. I would like to see that.
I kind of want to watch that show he did like one season of, like Zach Stone's gonna be famous. Have you heard of that?
No.
So
No.
he it's
Haven't
like
heard of it.
it's on Prime, but I think you have to pay for the episodes like $2 or whatever. But he basically has a camera crew. He spends his savings when he's coming out of high school on getting a camera crew to follow him around and show his life how he wants to. But he keeps like they keep rolling, but he'll do stuff like, okay, Mom, take that again. Like, let's start over. Let's start that scene again, Mom, because you like screwed up. Like, he's like very much like trying to like make his life look how he wants to see it on the show, which is what he's spending his life savings on, because he wants to be famous. But they're like, Zach, what are you gonna be famous for? So it's like a commentary on his life growing up.
Wait, this is Bo acting that?
Yeah,
But he's
acting it.
playing a character?
Yeah,
He only did a season.
I think it's one season.
Oh.
Like
That sounds
12
interesting.
because
12
it
or
didn't
14
because it
episodes.
didn't get picked up, or like
I don't know enough about it, but I saw
I
a
want to
couple
watch
clips
that.
of it.
I also need to watch 8th grade.
Yeah, me too.
But
Next time.
yeah, let's wrap it up. Overall, I think it was awesome.
All right, sing us a song on the way out. Whatever song you.
Can we do one of Mike's original songs?
Yeah, you got the guitar, right?
Yeah. Just close us out, Mike.
Do you know